Have you ever wondered what it takes to change the course of a life that's already been written off? Some people walk through the world like Thayer, waiting for the door to slam in their face. They learn to live in the shadows, expecting the worst, because the worst is usually what they get. But then, there's that one moment, that single, heartbeat-sized decision where the entire trajectory of a human soul shifts. For a man named Jack Daniels, that moment came not with a gunshot or a grand speech, but with a 6-year-old girl tugging at his hand, asking a question so simple it felt like a wrecking ball. If this story already has your heart, hit that subscribe button right now. I want to see this journey reach as many people as possible, so drop a comment below and tell me what city you're watching from. I want to see just how far this story travels. The orphan train pulled into Caldwell, Kansas on a Tuesday. Jack always thought Tuesday was the most miserable day of the week for anything significant to happen. He hadn't come to town for a spectacle. Had come with his daughter Emma for barbed wire, a new bridle, and maybe a bit of calico if the shop had anything worth buying. But then Emma heard the bell. She tugged on his hand-tow short pulls, one long, the universal signal for Daddy. Stop and look. He should have kept walking. But he looked, and he saw them. 11 children lined up on the rail depot platform like stock at an auction. The crowd was a familiar mix of small-town voyeurism folks looking for a bargain or a bit of free labor, masked in the pretense of civic duty. 10 of the kids were clustered together, holding hands or gripping meager possessions. But the 11th was different. He stood apart, pressed against the brickwork, arms crossed, chin tilted in a way that screamed he was ready to fight the whole world. He looked about 12, maybe 13, but his eyes held the weary, hollow look of someone who had seen too many winters. There was a yellowing bruise on his jaw, and his clothes were a bad fit, clearly hand-me-downs from boys who had long since moved on. He wasn't looking for a home, he was looking for the exit. "Daddy," Emma whispered, her voice tight with that strange, heavy gravity children sometimes stumble upon. "Can we buy that boy?" The word buy felt like a lead weight in Jack's stomach. He crouched down, meeting her eyes. "People don't buy people, Emma." "Then why is that man selling them?" She shot back. "And why is that boy all by himself? Nobody wants him." Jack stood up, his heart hammering against his ribs. He looked at the boy again, and the boy looked back. It wasn't a plea, it was a challenge. A silent, bruised, beautiful challenge. Jack tried to turn away, tried to think of the fences that needed mending and the hay that wouldn't wait. He tried to think like the man had convinced himself he was a man who stayed in his own lane and minded his own business. But his memory was a traitor. It dragged him back 26 years, to a July afternoon in Missouri, when he was 8 years old and terrified that nobody would pick him before the county workhouse claimed him. He told Emma to wait in the wagon, and he walked back across the street. The placement agent was already packing up, tired and cynical. Jack approached the boy, Tucker. Every muscle in Tucker's frame was coiled for a strike. "Tucker Adams," Jack said, his voice steady. "That's what they're calling me," the boy retorted. Close enough. Jack didn't try to charm him. He didn't offer fake promises. He told the boy he ran a cattle ranch, that the work was hard, that he wasn't a saint, and that he needed a hand. He asked the boy one simple question: "Are you tired?" For a second the armor cracked. The boy whispered, "Yeah, I'm tired." "Then come home," Jack said. It wasn't a transaction. It was a lifeline. And against all his instincts, against all the trauma of his own past, Tucker Adams picked up his sick everything he owned in the world, fitting into something a man could lift with 2 fingers, and followed Jack to the wagon. The ride to Whispering Pines was quiet, but it was a silence that held a new frequency. Emma, showing the kind of wisdom that puts adults to shame, simply slid over on the bench and sat close enough to offer comfort without forcing it. The ranch wasn't paradise. It was a place of work, of dirt, of struggle. Jack's ranch hand, Reuben, was a man who looked at Tucker as if he were a particularly stubborn fence post. But Tucker found his rhythm. He fixed the water troughs. He mended the fences. He started standing up to the people who tried to pull him back into the shadows. But life on the frontier doesn't let you breathe for long. A predatory neighbor, a man named Gerald Marsh, wanted Jack's land. He didn't play fair, he played dirty. He sent his thugs to threaten Jack. He pressured the bank to call in loans. And when that didn't work, he tried to weaponize the system against Jack's new family, filing complaints with the Children's Aid Society to have Tucker removed. He tried to break them by turning their own virtus, their kindness, their responsibility into liabilities. He thought Jack was just a man with a ranch, and Tucker was just a boy with a history. He didn't understand that they were now something else. When the society officials came to inspect the ranch, Tucker didn't lie. He stood in that kitchen, bruised but unbroken, and told them about the work, the lessons, the life he'd found. And then he dropped the hammer. He told them why he stayed, because he came back. Nobody ever came back before. That simple truth didn't just satisfy the inspectors, it dismantled their suspicion. Jack wasn't just a rancher anymore. He was a father. And Tucker wasn't just a hand. He was a son. They took the fight to the county seat. They didn't use fists, they used the law. They used evidence. They turned the tables on the men who thrived on the dark, bringing everything into the blinding public light of day. When the bank director in Wichita finally realized his local branch had been playing games on behalf of a predator, the pressure on Jack's land didn't just drop, it vanished. The real story, though, wasn't about the land or the bank. It was about what happens when you stop running. One night, while mending the paddock fence, Tucker confessed Head had his bag packed 3 days after he arrived. Head planned to bolt the moment things started to feel all right, because that was his signal that the disaster was coming. "I choose it," Tucker said about staying. Every day after that it was a choice. That's the core of it, isn't it? We're all orphans of one kind or another, looking for a place where we don't have to pack our bags. We spend half our lives waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the light to go out. But sometimes, if you're brave enough to let the light stay on, you find out that you aren't trash that got thrown away. You're just a person who finally found home. Jack Daniels and Tucker Adams didn't win their battle because they were stronger than the world. They won because they decided, together, that they were worth defending. They turned a canvas sack of nothing into a future, one fence post, one reading lesson, and one act of grace at a time. If this story reminded you that the hardest roads often lead to the best places, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments. What's the one place you've ever felt truly at home? And don't forget to subscribe. You won't want to miss our next deep dive into the stories that shape us. Thanks for walking this road with me.